We return today to Skyrim to explore another of this game's burning mysteries, of which there most certainly are many. And for today's video in particular, I have plucked from the perplexing sea of questions that go wanting a satisfying answer, a topic that may at first glance come across as a modest exercise in choice, and though it doesn't strive to be much beyond that, the decision in question is positioned in such a way that it's hard to make an educated decision on which answer is correct. I am of course talking about the dilemma encountered in the quest in my time of need. This quest will begin in Whiterun and is activated upon completing the objective of defeating a dragon in the main story quest Dragon Rising. Upon our return to the city of Whiterun, we will find two red guards engaging in a less than friendly conversation with a guard. They make it clear they're looking for someone, though the guard also makes it clear they aren't for whatever reason welcome within the city, and if we loiter for long enough they'll turn to us for aid.
You there. We're looking for someone in Whiterun. We will pay good money for information.
Who are you looking for?
A woman, a foreigner in these lands. Redguard, like us. She is likely not using her true name. We will pay for any information regarding her location. We are not welcome here in Whiterun, so we will be in Rorikstead if you learn anything.
Who are you looking for again?
We're looking for a fugitive who comes from Hammerfell. A Redguard woman. She may be somewhere in this city.
And why are you looking for this woman?
It's none of your concern. All you need to know is that we're paying for information. If that doesn't interest you, feel free to walk away.
So these Alakir warriors from Hammerfell are seeking a Redguard woman whom they claim to be a fugitive. They will not disclose why they search for her, only that should we have any information that may be of use to them, we are to seek them out in Rorikstead. For it's obvious these fellows cannot freely search Whiterun where they believe this fugitive may be hiding, without risking some description of undesirable incident. So for the time being at least, let's search Whiterun for this potential Redguard woman fugitive. Now there are 7 Redguards in Whiterun, of whom 3 are women. One is married to Nazim, which defeats the point of laying low, and another is married with a child, which may affect the prospect of running away in the event of being found. And that leaves us with one possibility. A barmaid at the Bannered Mare named Saadia, whom we can quiz about the Alakir warriors' pursuit. Did you know some Alakir warriors are looking for a Redguard woman?
Are you sure? Oh no. They found me? I need your help, please. Come with me. I need to speak to you privately, so the Alakir know where I am. What do they offer you? Gold? How many more of them are coming? Tell me.
They just asked me to find you.
You can't tell them. Please, I need your help, and there isn't anyone I can trust here in the city.
Maybe. What do you want?
I am not the person that the people of Whiterun think I am. My real name is Eamon. I am a noble of House Suda in Hammerfell. The men who are looking for me, the Alakir, they are assassins in the employ of the Aldmeri Dominion. They wish to exchange my blood for gold. I need you to root them out and drive them away before they find me and drag me back to Hammerfell for an execution.
How am I supposed to get rid of them?
They're mercenaries, only in it for the money. They're led by a man named Kematu. Get rid of him, and the rest will scatter. I don't dare show my face, lest they recognize me, so you'll have to find out where they are.
Any suggestions as to how I find them?
I heard one of them was just arrested trying to sneak into the city. If he's locked up in the jail, perhaps you can get it out of him. Please, I know I'm asking you to do something difficult, maybe even dangerous. I just don't know who else I can trust.
Why haven't you gone to the guards for help?
You think I'd be in hiding if this was something I trusted town guards to handle? These men are ruthless, cunning, deceitful. They'll pay off whoever they can. I can't trust anyone here in Whiterun. Guards and Jarls can be bought. And the Alakir are close. I'm running out of time, so I'm choosing to trust you.
So why are the Alakir after you?
I don't know for sure. I spoke out against the Aldmeri Dominion publicly. I suspect that's why these men were hired to hunt me down.
So Saadia is indeed the Redguard fugitive the Alakir warriors seek, and she delivers us a bucket load of information. However, if you're the kind of person that's sharp on details, you may have noted that there are holes in her story. But to avoid having to repeat myself, I am going to weigh those up later. For the time being, we have a choice to go speak with the Alakir prisoner in the Whiterun prison, or to inform the Alakir of Saadia's location. The latter doesn't really serve to provide any extra content, it simply hastens the quest to its final stage. So in the pursuit of answers, let's humour Saadia for the time being, and venture forth to the prison beneath Dragon's Reach, where sure enough there is indeed an Alakir prisoner, who for reasons that evade my understanding, has been allowed to keep his armour. So let's have a chinwag.
What are you looking at?
I need to find Kematu. Where is he hiding?
You have a death wish then? If you know that name, you must know to meet him would be to meet your end. But it seems we both have needs, friend. Perhaps we can help each other out.
What is it that you need?
I have dishonored my brothers by being captured, and so they have left me here. My life with the Alakir is over now, but I have no wish to die in this god's forsaken land. If I can be released from prison, I may start over. See to that, and I'll tell you what you want to know.
Why did they leave you here?
Because I was clumsy enough to be captured. Kematu always says, we're supposed to be the best of the best. I wasn't.
Okay. How much to pay your fine?
100 gold will secure my release. You can afford that, can't you? I suppose you'd better hope you can, if you want the information. Get the money into the hands of one of these guards, and I'll tell you what you want to know.
That sounds fairly reasonable. In exchange for his knowledge, we need to secure his freedom. So we need to find a nearby guard and dollop a wad of cash in his hand.
Done. Convince him to stay out of the city while you're at it.
And then return to continue our conversation with the warrior. Your fine has been paid. Now tell me about Kematu.
Very well. Kematu is west of Whiterun. It's an unassuming little cave called Swindler's Den. You realize if you set foot in there, you're never coming back out. They'll kill you. But that's your problem, not mine. Guard! My fine's been paid, now set me free!
Sorry, my ears aren't so good. You say something?
I said my fine has been paid, now let me out!
Right, right. Oh, look at that. I seem to have lost my keys. Might take me a while to find them. You just sit tight. I'll get around to it eventually.
Curse you!
It would seem the guards enjoy a mild amount of tomfoolery. But let's not waste too much time feeling sorry for this fella, because he's revealed where we can find Kematu, Swindler's Den, a cave infested with bandits to the west of Whiterun. They're polite bandits who attempt to ward us off before becoming openly hostile.
That's close enough.
But unfortunately for them, we don't have the luxury of a parley right now. And naturally, we must venture into the cavern that is no doubt teeming with more bandits to find this Kematu.
I'm not sure I like these Alakir warriors hiding out here. They seem like trouble.
Keep it to yourself. No paying us to talk. They'll be gone as soon as they find whoever they're looking for. We'll have all the more coin.
So it seemed these Alakir warriors are paying the bandits for use of their space as a hideout, while conducting their operations within the hold of Whiterun, which is incredibly clandestine and does paint a morally grey picture of this Kematu, if he's willing to even associate with such lowlives of society in order to complete his mission. And it should be a tad disquieting that the bandits are unsettled by the presence of these Alakir warriors. But since we're here, we might as well kill them all. After all, we need to go through them to reach Kematu anyway, which after a short while we certainly shall.
You've proven your strength, warrior. Let's avoid any more bloodshed. I think you and I have some things to talk about.
It would seem Kematu's in a talkative mood, so perhaps we can get his perspective on things.
Stay your hand, warrior. It's no secret why you're here, and you have proven your skill in combat. Let us talk a moment. No one else needs to die.
Yes? I've been sent here to kill you.
Of course. Sent by... What is it that she's calling herself these days? Shazra? Saadia, one of those, correct? Did she appeal to your sense of honor? Your greed? A more base need, perhaps? It doesn't matter. No doubt she's convinced you that she's the victim. But do you know why we pursue her?
Saadia told me, you're assassins.
Assassins? No, nothing so crass. Saadia, as you know her, is wanted by the noble houses of Tanith for treason. We were hired to see her return to Hammerfell for her crimes. You can help us with that. And make sure no one else gets hurt.
And what exactly was her crime?
She sold the city out to the Aldmeri Dominion. Were it not for her betrayal, Tanith could have held its ground in the war. The other noble houses discovered her betrayal, and she fled. They want her brought back alive. The resistance against the Dominion is alive and well in Hammerfell, and they want justice.
And now we're left to choose, really, to either side with Kematu or to continue to be sided with Saadia. Choosing to remain steadfast in the belief that Saadia is in the right, we will have to fight all of the Alakir warriors in this cave. And perhaps more importantly, we need to eliminate Kematu. And that will allow us to return to Saadia, to bring news of our success in vanquishing this threat.
At last, I can rest safely. You have done me a great service, warrior. I cannot thank you enough. Take this reward. I managed to sneak some of my wealth out of Hammerfell when I left. It's the least I can do. For now, I will maintain my ruse here. You are always welcome in the Bannered Mare.
And that's one conclusion to the quest, I suppose. Saadia slides you some gold, and that's that. But the alternative is to side with Kematu. So what do you want me to do?
She trusts you, at least to some extent. She sent you after us, and has no reason to think that you'd do anything other than that. Convince her that we'll be coming for her, and she needs to leave. Lead her to the stables outside Whiterun. We'll be waiting to take her into custody. I'll gladly share a portion of the bounty in return for your efforts in seeing proper justice done.
All right, I'll do it.
Good. We'll be waiting for you at the stables. It will be good to finally be able to return home.
It's somewhat noteworthy that these fellows don't seem particularly fussed about us killing their cave mates, so to speak, which would suggest they aren't fond of bandits and therefore unlikely to be criminals. But that is a very sideways point. When siding with Kematu, we must venture back to Whiterun and convince Saadia that she's no longer safe within the city's walls, even if, as it stands, that's perhaps the only safe place for her to be.
Any news of the Alakir?
I was unable to defeat them all, and they're coming for you.
What? How? I thought they weren't allowed within the city.
They've found a way in. We need to get you out of here.
But where will I go? I can't keep running forever.
There's a horse waiting at the stables. I'll make sure you're safe.
After all this, I have to pick up and leave again? If you really think this is the only way, I trust you. Let's not waste any time.
And now Saadia shall accompany us to the Whiterun stables, where Kematu is in waiting.
What is this? What have you done?
Oh, come now. You didn't really expect to manipulate people forever, did you? Your luck had to run out sometime. Now we'll take our friend here back to Hammerfell, where she will pay the price for her treason.
She won't be harmed?
Not on the way back. Once she gets there, it's not up to me to decide what's done with her. And as for you, I owe you a portion of the reward, don't I? Well, here you go. Spend it wisely, and if I may, don't allow yourself to be fooled by a pretty face. You're better than that.
Either way, the reward is the same. But this way, Saadia is paralysed by some description of spell, and will disappear from the world, never to be seen nor heard from again. But you've seen now how both decisions play out. However, the issue is you have to make this decision from a position of not knowing which choice is the correct one. And as you can imagine, that's not awfully ideal. So the mystery goes, who's telling the truth? For their stories conflict. Saadia claims she spoke out against the Thalmor, and Kematu and his Alakir warriors are assassins hired by the Thalmor to hunt her down and silence her. Whereas Kematu claims She sold out the city of Tanith in southern Hammerfell to the Aldmeri Dominion, and is on the run because her treason was discovered, and the Alakir simply pursue her in the name of justice. So the stories blatantly contradict, and it's our responsibility to discern who's being truthful with us. So it's time to equip the hat of scrutiny and pick apart what we've been told. Saadia's account and even her behaviour is a tad strange. She claims the Alakir warriors are assassins hired by the Thalmor to kill her, even though the Thalmor are no strangers to sending assassins to kill. In respect to the main quest line, should Malborn survive the quest diplomatic immunity, they'll send an assassin after him, who will lurk outside the city of Windhelm waiting for him to leave. They even send an assassin after the Dragonborn during the main quest line during the quest A Cornered Rat, and it's interesting that in both instances of encountering Thalmor assassins, they both happen to be Khajiit. That, however, is not the point. The point is, the Aldmeri Dominion have a well-oiled machine when it comes to sanctioning and executing assassinations, as in both instances the would-be assassin attempts to blend in as inconsequential as much as 6 feet tall cat people typically can. On the flip side, there's absolutely nothing subtle about a platoon of Alakir warriors, especially since we can find them declaring their intentions to a guard. If their intent was to unlawfully kill someone, the last thing you'd want to do is make yourself known to the authorities. Also, Saadia trips up on her identification of the Alakir warriors as assassins when she says,
I need you to root them out and drive them away before they find me and drag me back to Hammerfell for an execution.
So Saadia is 100% aware of their true intentions to bring her back to Hammerfell to be executed. That does not fit the bill of an assassin, I'm afraid. As why would an assassin drag an unwilling prisoner halfway across the continent of Tamriel just to kill her in a different province? It's a waste of energy. Also, the word execution implies her death would be lawfully warranted, and if that's the aim, it's the waste of a deployment of an assassin in the first place. Furthermore, I'm not awfully convinced the Alakir would hold much love for the Thalmor, and here's why. During the Great War between the Third Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion, Hammerfell were not only opposed to the High Elves as a province of the Empire, but they were also opposed to the White Gold Concordat, the treaty that ended the Great War upon its signing in the 175th year of the Fourth Era. For reasons documented in the book The Great War, written by Legate Justianus Quintius, in an epilogue subtitled Hammerfell Fights On Alone, that reads as follows. Hammerfell, however, refused to accept the White Gold Concordat, being unwilling to concede defeat and the loss of so much of their territory. Titus II was forced to officially renounce Hammerfell as an imperial province in order to preserve the hard-won peace treaty. The Red Guards, understandably, looked on this as a betrayal. In this, the Thalmor certainly achieved one of their long-term goals by sowing lasting bitterness between Hammerfell and the Empire. In the end, the heroic Red Guards fought the Aldmeri Dominion to a standstill, although the war lasted for 5 more years and left southern Hammerfell devastated. The Red Guards say that this proves the White Gold Concordat was unnecessary, and that if Titus II had kept his nerve, the Aldmeri could have been truly defeated by the combined forces of Hammerfell and the rest of the Empire. The truth of that assertion can of course never be known, but the Red Guards should not forget the great sacrifice of Imperial blood, Breton, Nord and Cyrodiilic, at the Battle of the Red Ring that weakened the Dominion enough to allow the eventual Second Treaty of Stros M'Kai in 4E 180, and the withdrawal of the Aldmeri forces from Hammerfell. Nothing causes embitterment quite like a 10-year-long conflict that desolates your homeland and costs your greatest ally, leaving you to fend for yourself in a time of severe strife. Such a struggle, especially in recent memory, would likely become part of a national pride. Therefore, I highly doubt there's enough love in Hammerfell, and indeed among Red Guards for the Thalmor, for Alakir warriors to pose as assassins on behalf of the Aldmeri Dominion. Not to mention, if they did have such a surplus of men who could operate under that particular repertoire of skills, why would the Aldmeri Dominion insist on deploying Khajiit assassins to Stormcloak territory, when it's arguable Red Guards would be a more effective option? And the simple answer is, they're not an option. Anyway, moving on. If Saadia is indeed fleeing the Aldmeri Dominion's influence, why stop at Whiterun? It's a bit like breaking out of prison, taking one step outside, staying there because you're free now. And though Whiterun is effectively neutral, they're more Imperial leaning than Stormcloak, so the Thalmor could show up theoretically any day. Whiterun's Jarl, Balgruuf the Greater, may resent the Thalmor with just as much passion as Ulfric Stormcloak, that's been addressed in a previous video I've done, and he may very well wish to keep them away from his city for as long as possible. But considering the broader political leanings at play here, they're only ever a stone's throw away. Why not eliminate such complication and hide among the Stormcloaks somewhere like Windhelm or Riften, avoiding such a risk by being nowhere near it? And the answer is because Saadia is not on the run from the Thalmor. And as the final nail in the coffin for that point, surely Hammerfell would be the safest place to speak out against the Aldmeri Dominion. Because, by the sounds of it, that's what everyone there is doing anyway. Saadia's story is also inconsistent within itself from start to finish. And by that I mean, when we first open conversation with her, she seems surprised that the Alakir have found her. And yet in that same conversation, she discloses that she's aware of one who has been captured, attempting to sneak into the city, and is being held in the prison beneath Dragon's Reach. So, the news that the Alakir are closing in is not news to her. Which would suggest her going through the motions over the news the Alakir have found her could very well just be a performance. A manipulation tactic tailored to render us sympathetic towards her. And if Kematu's dialogue is to be believed, that's exactly what she's done in the past.
You didn't really expect to manipulate people forever, did you? Your luck had to run out sometime.
So with that in mind, I have absolutely no doubt that Saadia is lying to us, repeatedly. But can Kematu be trusted either? Well, we can make some observations about his situation. We can find him and his men hiding among bandits in a cave while planning an illegal extraction of a fugitive back to Hammerfell, which doesn't paint the picture of a man unwilling to lower his own moral standards. He isn't immediately hostile with us, though he certainly has the numbers to stand a chance in a fight, and despite our reason for being present, no doubt provoking thoughts of his own death, he attempts to convince us why he's right, despite his own reputation suggesting his battle prowess is nothing to scoff at. And though fighting through an entire bandit camp just to get at him no doubt makes us somebody not to be engaged in combat unless absolutely necessary, it does feel as if he's going out of his way to ensure that nobody senselessly dies, which is echoed when you side with him. If, despite Kematu capturing Saadia, you choose to kill her, he will be furious.
All that effort and you just kill her? You've ruined everything.
This does suggest he does intend for Saadia to stand trial in Hammerfell for her crimes, and only desires to see her dead so far as the course of justice deems necessary. However, he isn't without cold ruthlessness. Leaving a man in prison because he simply got caught may very well seem like a calculated move after all. Doing the opposite would risk causing a serious incident, even though they put the guy in the cell with a trapdoor, because of course they did. But it seems as if among this band of warriors led by Kematu, this is the done thing in the event that one of their ranks is captured. They are simply left behind. Sound or not, that takes some cold-heartedness. So on account of that information, I think it's reasonable that we shouldn't go admiring Kematu for his values either. But after all, he is a mercenary, he is in this for profit. But in his defense, he makes no secret of this. He's a charismatic fellow who delivers his points with conviction. But it's clear he's been on Saadia's tail for some time. And this particular scenario, the one we're in now, isn't novel to him. It's clear he hasn't been able to convince previous heroes of his perspective, and that's probably partially where his reputation for lethality stems from. It's either that or he had a bloody good brief. Now what occurs to me is if indeed this quest is the culmination of a vicious cycle, Kematu's role is naturally a lot more predictable than that of Saadia. Meaning, if indeed he is spouting bollocks to us, he's had a lot more time to rehearse it, because his inevitable interactions with whomever Saadia convinces to go play hero may tend to be far less erratic in nature than interactions between whichever, let's face it, bloke and Saadia. And Kematu's dialogue isn't without its holes either. According to his account, Saadia sold out the city of Tanith during the Great War, and if not then at some point during the 5 years that followed in which the Red Guards and Aldmeri Dominion were still fighting. by the events of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. That event took place between 20 and probably closer to 30 years ago. So let's assume Saadia was an adult at this time. This would make her around 50 years old, at a minimum. And I'm not one to ordinarily comment on how gracefully another person ages, on account of the failed tactical maneuver that is my hairline some days. However, Saadia looks nowhere near that age. However, this may not indeed be a flaw in Kematu's story, as it appears across the board in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. There are many NPCs with canonical years that surpass their looks, so I don't intend to beat that proverbial drum too hard, as there are perhaps more important details to consider. For instance, the disparity between Kematu's assumed off-screen actions and his words. What I mean is, if you follow through with betraying Saadia and handing her over to the Alakia warriors unharmed, and then take a delve in the Whiterun Hall of the Dead a few days later, that for some reason has a reanimated skeleton infestation, does nobody ever come down here? It is said you can find Saadia's urn, which would suggest that she's been killed. Probably before she could see trial in Hammerfell, as stuff like that can take a while. But before we can get too excited about this particular revelation, this would seem to be a bug. You see, when a unique NPC assigned to a settlement is removed from the world, usually by dying, the game places a burial urn in their name in that respective NPC's local Hall of the Dead. The game also registers Saadia as dead, therefore she gets an urn. Just like, for instance, here's Nazim's urn, and yes, I'm pleased with myself. So are we to believe that Saadia was abducted by these Alakia warriors, taken back to Hammerfell, quickly murdered, and her remains were sent back to Skyrim to go in the Whiterun Hall of the Dead, or that Skyrim just sometimes is Skyrim? So with Saadia we get this on-the-spot act that's full of inconsistencies. However, there's something about Kematu's own act that feels rehearsed. But if we're looking for actual lies in his words, they don't necessarily make the most sense either. For instance, this notion that Saadia sold out Tanith to the Aldmeri Dominion. Now, it doesn't seem the Thalmor are strangers to cultivating insiders, but they typically make no secret of their contemptuous demeanour towards other races. In other words, they're not exactly in the market of making friends where they can avoid it. And what would the Aldmeri Dominion be able to offer that a noble of House Suda like Saadia might need? What could they even provide that would tempt her to betray her house and her city? The only logical explanation is she saw that defeat was inevitable. But if that was the case, what purpose would cultivating an insider actually serve? I suppose you can make a case for the mitigation of casualties, but how effective would that even be? Especially when taking into consideration the big picture. Furthermore, something Kematu says kinda stuck with me as odd.
Were it not for her betrayal, Tanith could have held its ground in the war.
What's never elaborated on is how Saadia sold the city out exactly. Did she surrender information to turn the tide of battle, or did she let enemy forces into the city? Either way, it implies Tanith is only as strong as its weakest link, and if that's Saadia, in what world could the city have possibly held out when the vast majority of the rest of southern Hammerfell was left in ruin? I don't doubt the notion that Saadia sold the city of Tanith out to the Aldmeri Dominion is possible. I am, however, highlighting how vague Kematu's explanation for why she must face justice is. And well, the best way to sell a lie is to keep it simple. I mean, it's obvious Saadia is lying through her teeth for whatever reason, but who's to say Kematu isn't also playing liberally with the truth? Both mention the Thalmor or the Aldmeri Dominion, perhaps not because they have the slightest thing to do with this situation, but rather because both understand how widely vilified they are. Therefore they're weaved into both variants of this story, in order to render the third party, being us, being compelled to stick it to the High Elves, rather than pay attention to the fact that something else altogether might be going on here. That said, it is an interesting coincidence that both would play the same card, but like I said, it appears to be the case that this scenario has come up for these characters before, so I'm not convinced either character is entirely unaware of the other's story. So perhaps we're evaluating this entire situation from the wrong angle altogether. What if it's not about who's wrong and who's right? At least not with regards to their versions of events. Because though we can make a case for either party lying to us, it seems a lot more difficult to discern who, if anybody, is telling us the truth. and that's because I don't suspect either individual is. At least not wholly. I don't intend for this next point to stand too vigorously, but I'm going to make it anyway. Helping Saadia doesn't consist of the player helping her evade capture, but rather she sends the Dragonborn on the offensive specifically after Kematu, believing slaying him will mean the rest of the Alik'r warriors will simply scatter. If this was a pursuit in the name of justice, surely it doesn't matter who you killed. If the noble houses of an entire province were out for your blood, killing the leadership of the band of mercenaries sent after you might short-term scatter those forces, but long-term it's just going to make the problem worse the next time. The only world in which the death of Kematu specifically means the problem goes away is if Kematu was the actual source of the problem, and it's through his own will he pursues Saadia rather than simply exercising the will of another for gold.
But now Kematu's gone, and the rest of his snakes should slither back to their desert. I can go back to my life for now, and I have you to thank for it. I won't forget this.
Though if you choose to side with her and kill Kematu, she does hint at the idea that one day she'll have to flee from her life at the Bannered Mare in Whiterun as well, so I don't have a viable alternative explanation for this game of cat and mouse as we see it, as for which decision is the correct one. There's no actual evidence based on the information we know to have an informed opinion, and though there is what sounds true and what sounds false, at no point does anything objectively become one or the other. Saadia's story certainly doesn't add up, and Kematu's explanation is vague to the point of withholding crucial details. So in absence of evidence to reinforce words, let's evaluate actions. Saadia works in a tavern, which is modest hard work for somebody who claims to have been a noble, and upon aiding her she keeps that up, even perhaps in absence of a need to. Ruse or not, as it stands, she's doing no harm. Kematu shows up with a band of foreign mercenaries and hides out in a cave surrounded by bandits, and abandons a man to captivity, which hardly paints the picture of an honourable individual. And yet he goes against the grain in asking you to hear him out. He doesn't want to kill you, and if we betray Saadia, as far as we can tell, he doesn't kill her either. In fact, he goes as far as to take issue with you if you choose to kill Saadia yourself. But in order to help Saadia, she asks that we kill Kematu. So perhaps the underlying point of this quest is that appearances can be deceiving. After all, that's the takeaway lesson that Kematu leaves you with should you side with him.
And if I may, don't allow yourself to be fooled by a pretty face. You're better than that.
Perhaps this is the game's way of patting us on the back for figuring out which choice is the correct one. So with that in mind, I wouldn't call it evidence, but everything we've gone over would seem to suggest that Saadia is the less forthcoming of the two. And though Kematu's own dialogue doesn't seem to 100% match up, his dialogue curiosities may very well be explainable as the product of writing quality rather than intent, whereas Saadia seems to intentionally contradict herself and lore. So if we're to assume the game wants us to take one of these accounts as gospel, it's going to have to be Kematu's. But due to how ambiguous the quest is start to finish, I think the point is to test the player's ability to make these decisions without the game too overtly pointing you towards one choice in particular. Because we're not just meant to weigh up the account of actions that occurred in the past, but also form our own opinion on what the correct course of action is, judging by the events unfolding around us. Events that see this supposed traitor on her own trying to get by and keep her head down in a foreign land, being persecuted by a small army of mercenaries. And you could also argue the downgrade in lifestyle alone, from a noble in Hammerfell to a peasant in Skyrim, may very well be punishment enough for whatever her past transgressions were. So there's room for interpretation with regards to weighing up which choice to make. Even if you can play both sides, wait for Kematu to paralyze Saadia, take payment from him, then kill him, then wait for Saadia's paralysis spell to wear off, cast a calm spell on her, and then get paid by her too. That will render her perpetually hostile though, so you'll have to kill her too. Double your reward, my friends. Kill them both. So that brings us to the end of today's video. To conclude, it's my belief that Saadia's story is the least believable of the two, meaning if Kematu's story is to be believed, she betrayed the houses of Hammerfell when selling out the city of Tanith to the Eldmeri Dominion, and as a result has been on the run since. From there, I suppose it's up to us to do whatever we will from that information. However, at the same time, I have a hard time trusting Kematu's words. I can't quite put my finger on it, but no matter which angle I view this from, I can't help but feel as if there's more to this story than simply the pursuit of justice for actions carried out 2 to 3 decades ago. Perhaps there's another political drama at the heart of it, one more personal to both Saadia and Kematu. And while I couldn't say what that was, there certainly appears to be some loathing between the two characters that goes beyond the knowledge that we're given access to at any point. But I think it'll take a mind smarter than mine to come up with a theory that fits that gap, if indeed it even needs filling. Even an artifact as revered and powerful as the Hat of Scrutiny can't sift through information that doesn't exist. And thus that brings this video to as satisfying a conclusion as it's going to get. Thank you all for watching. I really hope that you've enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends, all that wonderful stuff. It will be massively appreciated. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on this topic down in the comments section. And if you wish to witness me making a numpty out of myself on more topics than just gaming, maybe check out my history channel Decades via the link in the description. There's some content in the works, I look forward to it. And with any luck, I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, please take care and goodbye.